Well, hello everyone. My name is Wolfgang Hall and I'm here to present on nonprofits and NGOs and how to use Odoo Enterprise. Very pleased to be here. Thank you for coming. This is a Friday and there's lots of cool things to do in Brussels. So wonderful to have you all here. So let's dive in and maybe a little bit of background. I worked with Odoo in consulting for about 6 to 7 years. I worked with larger distributor or partner of Odoo, gold partner in the US, and decided to retire earlier this year to just focus on NGOs and nonprofits because I thought for the rest of my life, the next 10 years, I want to use my brain power to help those who help others. So that was the driver. And you know, NGOs don't have a lot of funding and money often, so we have to just scale back a little bit from the commercial side, but there is actually a business case, and I'm going to show you what I've experienced, and maybe that resonates with what you need or what you have also experienced as well. So let me dive in. So the topics today are about a little bit about nonprofits around the world, but also what is the best ERP for NGOs? That's a cool question. And then what are the considerations when you put an ERP together for an NGO? And then what are the function modules? So this is basically, in short, what I want to talk about. The QR code, if you want to scan it now with any questions, you can do that because at the end I'm going to display that again, but that gives you a chance to just type in questions right now. Well, let's go. So nonprofits and NGOs around the world, and I don't know what your background is, but what I have learned is that there are 10 million NGOs around the world. A lot of those are very small. So the more than the majority, or that more than 50% are NGOs that are not even really equipped with staff. They don't have a huge budget. They're very, very small, and they probably would not really need an ERP. But also NGOs are still among the top employers across all industries, if you take it as an industry. Or if NGOs were a country, it would be actually the 5th largest economy in the world, which is outstanding. So just think about the financial power that NGOs have. And also the outreach of NGOs, just in terms of people involved, means that 31% of people worldwide donate to charity, and also about a quarter of all the people volunteer for some charity in one way or another, which means when we expose people to Odoo, it actually has a ripple effect. It's not just the NGOs, it goes much further, it goes into the community, society overall. Some stats that I used yesterday in a presentation as well, or on Wednesday, this is from the US, but you can see that a lot of these NGOs are very small. So the majority, I said, is below even any particular reporting threshold, but there's still a substantial need in the community to use an ERP, because there are a lot of organizations that are over 100K or over 500K, over 5 million. Because the numbers, if you take 10 millions, really make the difference. Also, the employment numbers are interesting, that at least in the US, in 2015, NGOs have employed about the third of all, or it's the third largest employer of all the different industries. So very powerful community. Nonprofits have one key responsibility: to pursue their mission for the common good. And this can only be accomplished if you do your work effectively and use appropriate business process management tools. And that's why we're here. Odoo is one of those business process management tools, which brings the question, what is the best ERP or business app that we should be using? And the answer is, well, there is really, of course, no best ERP, because there are hundreds of ERP solutions. There are hundreds of different types of NGOs. And if you multiply that, you get the opinions that make up the best ERP. Now, I'm here because my experience is with Odoo, and I've worked with SAP and PeopleSoft and JD Edwards and Oracle and others, Microsoft, but I think there is a clear simplification if you use Odoo, and also flexibility in customization. So the approach for me to select the right ERP is similar to what we saw at the keynote, which is actually the replacement of all these different things that NGOs are using today. So I stole that slide from the new website. This is really Fabian's, but I thought it was resonating well, because exactly what's on here is what's happening in NGOs. They have all these different tools, and they struggle with the IT support of all these different tools, and you need an expert in every one of those different areas. And if you could substitute that with one thing, one application or set of applications like Odoo, then that would make it super simple. That's exactly what I'm proposing for NGOs. Some of the considerations is how can business apps really help to increase the mission of an NGO? And do we really need an ERP? And that is a tough question, because we, as ERP people, we like to say, yes, you need that. But if you're too small to really support it, then the answer is probably no. Do we have the budget? And that is, of course, a critical question, not just in the commercial side, but also for NGOs. And there are some components of an ERP that are not just administrative. They are program focused. For instance, if you run classes, you can probably take a portion of the ERP and say that is program related. And those who are familiar with the expense structure in NGOs, you usually have expenses for programs. That is where you get a lot of grants and funding. Then you have administrative expenses. Nobody wants to fund that. It's an evil stepsister. And then you have fundraising, which is also necessary. But so these three expense types are usually categorized. And if you can show your expenses on the program side, it helps to make a case. And then there's some other questions here. What does it take to actually set up the system? Who's going to do this? Do you have somebody that can take this technology and own it over the lifetime? And if you do customizations, that lifetime actually becomes more complicated, because every upgrade you'll have to work on those customizations. And do you really have the skills to maintain an on-premise solution? And that brings me to one of the key things about the different types of Odoos, because we have Odoo Community, which is usually on-premise, unless you have a third party that hosts it. We have Enterprise on-premise, or also hosted, self-hosted, maybe on a cloud server, but then you have Odoo SH, and you have Odoo SaaS online. And which one of those is the right setup? So Community has become, I think 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, I gave a talk at the Odoo Experience, and I was of the opinion a few years ago that we should build out the community version for NGOs. And I've deviated from that a little bit more, because I've experienced that on the accounting side and some other areas, NGOs really profit from a solution that is hosted, that they don't have to worry about on the IT side, which means SH or SaaS. And on the accounting side, the depth is just not there in community to support all the accounting regulations properly, because it's complex and every country has their own specifics. So that's why I actually have more customers now that are on Enterprise than on Community. And Community is for people that like to tinker more. If you have cool technical staff, they can probably make Community work to a large degree. But if you lose that person, that tinkerer, that guy that does it all, that is the driver behind the technology, then you're losing a big fundamental foundation of your business model for the ERP. So typical apps that are needed in NGOs, and this is now focused on enterprise based on the experience that I just described or that I mentioned. So it is simple to start with a website. That's actually a quick win, because with the new website tools, it's so easy to build out a website. I've converted multiple WordPress NGOs over to Odoo in no time. It takes just a few days to get all the pages done. And within a couple of weeks, you're basically up and running on a new website, which is amazing. It's super fast. What websites can do for NGOs, I call it the quick win, is outreach, of course, and you can do all your Google Google optimization, right? So you have all the right outreach. Forgot the term, SEOs. Thank you. So you have event management, you have projects, appointment scheduling, classes, e-learning. You have purchases, donations, and member management. All of these things you can do through the portal, and use actually websites to really get this done very quickly. So this doesn't take much time to set up. The tricky thing is always accounting, in my experience. A lot of smaller NGOs just use some tools that the accountant use. They farm accounting out, and they don't do it on their own. But if you grow as an NGO, you also need your own accounting team, and you need to get them used to a new tool like Odoo. This is where it is really critical to have the right mechanisms. And in the US particularly, fund accounting has some special needs. There's also certain terminology that is different in the reporting, on the reporting side, because they talk about a statement of activities and statement of financial position versus balance sheet and income statement. But with Odoo, we have the Odoo Enterprise. We have actually all the reporting tools we need, even though they may have a different label. And with the analytic accounts, we can fully manage all the fund reporting and expense reporting needs that we have, because you need to track expenses separate in different categories, as I mentioned earlier, the programs, the administrative, and the fundraising. So all of these need to be tracked. And donation tracking is just another way to track that also ties into accounting. And then bank integration. There's a lot of NGOs that still work on a cash basis, so they don't really use the standard accounting processes, because they just look at their bank accounts, and they need bank integration more than anything, because they want to see and track all the expenses that they have on the bank accounts. So another one is donation management. Odoo makes it really easy, because there's already these tools that I'm displaying on the right side. You can put your nice little labels on there. What is a $20, $50, $100 donation? And then all they need to do is hit donate now on your payment provider, whether that's Stripe or PayPal or whatever you just basically integrate with. And you sometimes, by the way, you can get good deals with payment providers as an NGO. I just got a discount with Stripe in the US. You just have to ask and provide some paperwork, and they discount your fees, so that's good to know. So donation management is one of the things that ties to accounting closely. So you can do this on the website quickly. Grant management is another one. And what is grant management? So we're funded by grants by people that actually want to give us money, but we have documentation that we need to provide. So documentation management is a critical factor. We also have fundraising tools, CRM tools, to keep track of all the contacts and to know which grants do I have ongoing. So you can use the pipeline in CRM very nicely for grant management and see how your grants are progressing, because in a way it's like a customer acquisition. It's very similar. You acquire the grants and you know all the different channels that you're dealing with. And then you have project management, because a grant is really, when you have it approved, it's a project. Even before it's approved, it can be a project to make sure you have all the documents in order. If there are grant requirements, you can easily check them off in activities and create tasks that make sure that you're matching all the different grant requirements. So it's very easy to manage that in projects using tasks and activities. For document management, I already mentioned that. You can have all the RFP requirements laid out in folders. You can also present it back to the portal user. One thing that I asked the Odoo team on Wednesday is to give us some folder structure and documentation management, so that makes it a little bit easier for the portal user. And the team was very open to that. It's not coming tomorrow, but maybe it's version 18, so that would be awesome. So accounting, I mentioned already, for grant management. And that gets us into some other areas, e-commerce, donation, shopping. So of course a donation on the website is really an e-commerce type of transaction, or can be. So you can take and sell, let's say, memberships, or if you have a paid membership model in your NGO, you can also sell shirts and other things. So a non-profit or an NGO doesn't mean that you can't make money. You just don't do it for profit. You do it to support your programs and the community. So e-commerce is actually a really good tool to use for NGOs and non-profits. So you probably know how to set up e-shopping. You've seen it around. So the whole shop site in Odoo has come a long way. It's very good and easy to use, and I think it has become very intuitive too. Project management, mentioned that a few times already. So most NGOs have projects. They run their programs through projects. And if they don't, then they should probably run it through projects to be more effective. And all the tools that I mentioned earlier, the tasks, activities, the assignments, also sharing of projects on the portal. I don't know if all of you know that if you set up a project, you can share it exactly with the customer on the portal, so they can log in and see every single step, every task progress on the portal side. It's very easy to set up and to see. So you share all that information, and NGOs, it's all about visibility and transparency. So having those tools on the portal to share is really powerful. Event management, most NGOs have events. That could be seminars, training events, or just outreach events. So having the ability to quickly put that on the website with just a few steps, it takes, once you're used to it, only 10 to 15 minutes to set up a new event. And if you want pretty pictures, it takes a little bit longer. But it's really an easy way to communicate and then manage ticket sales if you have paid entrance. And then in some cases, we tie events also to e-learning classes, where people then, once they're signed in, they can also get into e-learning. So member management is another one. So Odoo has a member module. The drawback that I've experienced with that module is that it doesn't tie well to subscriptions. So it's another ask that I would like the Odoo team to think about in the future. But right now we're using subscriptions, and sorry, there's a typo here. But it is really the CRM functions that we can use for membership management. We can communicate via SMS and emails, and then newsletters are published to email marketing via email marketing tools. So it's quick to publish newspapers. I mentioned e-learning several times. The LMS, the learning management system, allows for content management, continuous education, certificates, You see one of those here on the screen, self-learning and also badges. And that's a fun way to keep people engaged. So e-learning is a great tool that are used by educational NGOs or even by NGOs that go into the service area just to educate their members and the public. So in summary, Odoo has a full suite of apps to support most nonprofit organizations. The feedback that I have to the Odoo team that I got from nonprofits is it's great. The support is actually really good. We had a few items that didn't work immediately, particularly when we went from 16.3 to 16.4. And so we actually had a lot of good support response. It's easy to use. Please add some documents folders. It would be nice to have a nonprofit pricing model. That's a big ask, but I would love to see an industry focus of NGOs, so like we saw the other industries have an NGO industry, and also a pricing model for that. And I think that Enterprise Online is the most affordable and easiest to maintain website solution, replacing WordPress and all other stuff very quickly. And it's overall, it has been really easy to get these NGOs going with Odoo Enterprise. So this is kind of the summary. Here we get to the Q&A, so if you have any questions, please shoot. Not me, but shoot the questions. Do we have questions?
So, hey there together. Feel free to fill in your questions into the pad and I will read them for you. We already got some. So there was a question, is there a Dropbox integration which could handle the file management issue?
There are a lot of third-party documentation management integrations with Dropbox, with SharePoint, with Google Drive. Yes, but they are not standard and they need to be customized and things change. The problem is security and single sign-on. The real issue is that you want to secure it, and most of these tools require some sort of other authentication. Like in Google, you need Google authentication, you need a Google account to really edit files and upload files, and that's not really feasible. So I would like to see this built out in Odoo. There's also an alfresco integration through OCA, but then you need to be not on SaaS, you need to be on a platform that allows you to integrate new modules, not just the database modules, but real Python modules. And alfresco is a great open source documentation management system. That's probably better than Dropbox, but the question is, if you can install modules, if you're not on SaaS, then yes, otherwise no.
Thanks. We got another question that's a little bit longer. The biggest specialty of NGOs in our country is the accounting. When NGOs get money, it can't be profit right at this time. Profit is recognized at the time of having expenses. It means that Odoo accounting doesn't fit for such journal items. Did you have such experience? Do you have any solutions for that?
I acoustically didn't hear all of the question, but I think the question was, there are some problems about recognizing revenue at certain times and that Odoo doesn't handle this. Now, let me ask whoever asked that question, are you referring to the accounting and Odoo community or Odoo Enterprise? Enterprise? Okay, well, maybe you have some experience where you found that it doesn't fit. Maybe I can talk to you afterwards, because for me on the enterprise side, at least in the US, it seems to work pretty well. But that is different in different countries. I don't have visibility in all the countries. I'm like a little boxed into the US right now, sorry. But very good question. Okay, next question.
What's like the biggest difference between why do you use the Odoo Enterprise version instead of the Odoo Community version? What's like the biggest point there?
The biggest one for me was accounting. And like I said earlier, I was a big proponent of using community, but community does not have the depth in accounting. It doesn't have the project management depth. There's a lot of cool tools that enterprise has, and with the pricing model or per user pricing, you basically get all of these modules now in enterprise. So if you just have a few users to maintain the system, it actually becomes very cost effective to not use community. And community has the big drawback that you need to have it deployed and you need an IT infrastructure to support it. And if you're a techie, then that's great, but most NGOs have a mission. They're not really focused on the IT side as much, unless you're bigger. I hope that answered the question. Any other questions?
We've got another question, yeah. It's how do you manage the user training?
What was that, sorry?
How do you manage the user training?
How do I manage user training?
Yes, how do you train the users?
Okay, the user training, that's a great question. So to get going with website setup, it's actually super easy. What I do, I work with the IT or the website person, and I just set up the website with them initially. So it's a hands-on one-on-one thing for that. But there are many other users that need to be trained. So what we use is we have knowledge base. And knowledge base is a great tool to capture everything, all the work processes. And we have in the knowledge base for every process that we're doing a write-up, step 1, 2, 3, 4. And we really use knowledge base as our interface to train the end user. And then we complement that with videos. Loom videos are quick to record. Or YouTube, and we basically have that available to the users. And then if there are larger user bases, we can also do e-learning classes where it goes in, same thing you see that Odoo does for their training. We replicate that with e-learning and just put that in our classes.
Thanks. So we got no more questions.
Great.
Thank you for your call, for your talk.
Thank you all.
See you for the next one.